Hi there. I just thought I'd make a video entry for Richard McCook's 500 subscribers thread. Well done, Richard, on 500 subscribers. It's amazing, isn't it, that we can find 500 people that will listen to us drone on. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm talking about myself, not you. Anyway, for those who don't know, Richard came up with a really good concept. The idea is to put together a 6-track kind of sampler of a specific artist or band. I thought this is a great idea. I've always loved putting together kind of mixtapes and things, so it plays right into my my comfort zone. I should point out that I find it quite difficult to do these. I'm always amazed with greatest hits or best of albums that manage to do it only on one disc, especially when you have artists or bands with such a extensive back catalogue. Anyway, so without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to choose Tom Waits. I'm not sure if anyone has done Tom Waits. I did think about doing something more obscure, but I thought, no, I don't think anyone's done Tom Waits, so I'll do it. Now, he's an interesting artist, and I think this sort of 6-track sampler is a good way to just sort of, I don't know, give a kind of a map of where his career went. And I'm going to start with his first album, which I don't have on vinyl. This is, even though it has been re-released, I keep meaning to get it. This is Closing Time, which is his first album that he released in 1973. Now this is Tom Waits as the kind of folky, bluesy troubadour. There's some excellent songs on here. Some of them were singles. I should have said we're not allowed to choose any songs that have been singles, or at least singles as an A-side in your own country. So that meant I Hope I Don't Fall in Love with You couldn't be in there. But I thought what we need to do is you need to sort of show where he started, and this sort of folky country kind of beginnings. And the track on here that I want to do is called Old Shoes and Picture Postcards, which has acoustic guitar and really fits in with that kind of, I suppose, the Asylum singer-songwriter kind of thing, which he was doing right at the beginning. So that's so that's Old Shoes and Picture Postcards from Closing Time from 1973. Okay, the next track I'm going to choose is, he was always, continues to be influenced by jazz, but perhaps his most jazzy album is this, which is Nighthawks at the Diner. This was released in 1975. It's a double record, recorded in the studio, but designed to sound like a jazz club or something, with an invited audience all drinking and having fun. But it showcases Tom Waits at his sort of barest minimum. It's stripped down and kind of like a jazz trio, really. Just him, drums, him on piano, drums, and saxophone. I think that's basically it. And it also sort of shows him as the raconteur, the kind of witty beatnik. And the track I want to showcase is called Putnam County. And Putnam County is basically just him on piano. I think there's a bit of bass in there maybe. And it's a kind of a stream of consciousness, nostalgic look back, really. It's got full of his kind of one-liners and witticisms. And I think it showcases very well that kind of beatnik raconteur Tom Waits. So that's Putnam County. Okay, the next one I want to do is the kind of romantic Tom Waits. And he would probably do that the best, I think, on this album. This is A Small Change from 1976. And there he is in the stripper's dressing room. Oh, naughtiness. Don't look at the pasties. Anyway, So the opening track on here, which I can't believe wasn't released as a single actually, which is amazing, and that's Tom Trober's Blues. What's the word? Subtitled "Four Sheets to the Wind in Copenhagen," and what he does there is he kind of it's a sentimental, almost a kind of a love song, but what he does is he twins it with the song Waltzing Matilda, so we get that as his chorus. And it's got lush strings all over it. It sounds absolutely beautiful, and it's him at his most romantic and nostalgic, and creating this lush, piano-led, orchestral kind of sound, almost like something from a musical, perhaps. But anyway, yeah, so that's from Small Change, Tom Waits, and that's Tom Trober's Blues. Trober's Blues. I can never know how you pronounce it. Anyway, it was at this point in his career, well, I suppose this point, that was 75, did I say? Yeah, by the end of the 1970s, he got pretty, I suppose, bored of producing what he seemed as very similar albums. What's the quote I got? Yeah, he said, "I'd nailed one foot to the floor and kept going in circles, making the same record." And as much as I love all of his records, I understand completely what he means, that there was a sense that he was just regurgitating the similar kind of things over and over again, as much as he did them very, very well. And in the early 80s, he met Kathleen Brennan, who would become his wife, and she was a huge influence on him, and not necessarily introduced him to things, but gave Waits the confidence to kind of go out and do something different, what he wanted to do. And at this point, he was clearly introduced to Captain Beefheart and the music of Brecht and Kurt Weill. So things like the Threepenny Opera. And as a result, he came back in 1983 with a radical departure of an album, Swordfish Trombones. And this is a kind of like a Wylian Captain Beefheart mess of a record, which is an absolute masterpiece. It wasn't necessarily an influential album, because no one else necessarily went out and did it, but it was certainly influential for Tom Waits to get to that point in his career so he could move forward. And the song I want to use from this, the single I might have used, which is In the Neighbourhood, and but I'm going to use the kind of title track, Swordfish Trombone, which is a song about a veteran coming home and kind of dealing with, I suppose, the sort of the psychological results of I assume the Vietnam War, or it could be any war. But we have this sort of psychotic ex-soldier. And yeah, it's basically just Tom Waits' voice, a bass, some clattery drums, probably tom-toms, no snare or bass in it, and a marimba. So, which is if you don't know, it's kind of like a wooden glockenspiel or xylophone. And so that's playing there. So that's Swordfish Trombone from Swordfish Trombones. And so that put into act really the kind of the second part of his career, and he was signed, and that was the first album on Island, and this would be his last album on Island. This is Bone Machine, and this is from '92. It's almost commercial in places. I mean, there was a single which I Don't Want to Grow Up, which I've heard a number of places, which has Keith Richards on guitar on it. But the song I want to use is called In the Colosseum, which is a dark, horrific song with some of Waits's most troublesome lyrics. It's violent. It's erotic. It's sort of the horrors of the Roman Colosseum and the horrors that you saw in there, but also the horrors of the people that perpetrated it. Perpetrated it. Sorry, I went all Arkwright. Yeah, so a horrific song, but I think it showcases well. I keep saying the word showcase. It shows well, or exhibits well, where he was with his writing, the sort of the murder, the blood. So in the Colosseum from Bone Machine from '92, and you know his albums would always have a kind of a balance between the crash bang wallop, Captain Beefheart blues with Kurt Weill overtones, and but he would also have the ballads that he would always do. I mean, there's almost a sentimentality to his songwriting in terms of the tunes, simplistic almost. What's the word I'm after? Not a kind of lullaby simplicity. And I want to finish with a song from Bad As Me, which is his last album, which he released in 2011. So we're now 9 years since his last material. And I want to use the last song on his last album. And that's New Year's Eve, which is a ballad. And it harks back to Tom Traber's Blues, where he used Walter Matilda as the chorus, and he redoes this. He uses Auld Lang Syne as the chorus, which he couldn't think of. He was talking to Kathleen Brennan, and he said, I couldn't find a chorus to deal with this song about New Year's Eve, and she said, well, it's staring in your face, it's obvious, you've got to use Auld Lang Syne, which he does. And it's a story of a family get-together or a group get-together at New Year's Eve, and the kind of the way it all falls apart. And he said about it, if you've ever been at one of those gatherings where things went badly, where we all sing even though the fireworks scared the dog and he's been gone for 2 hours, and someone lit the sofa on fire, and Marge got food poisoning, and Bill O'Neill called the cops. So it's that New Year's Eve that all goes tits up. And that's the last song on the last album he recorded. It's a ballad. It kind of encapsulates all of his career. It's got that sort of roughness of his later career, but it's got that sentimentality and nostalgia of his early stuff. So there you are, Tom Waits. It's now 9 years since he's done an album. I understand since February he's been in the studio doing a new one, so I'll be looking forward to see where he goes. So Richard McCook, thank you for doing that. I hope everything's falling over. I hope this brings you some more subscribers. I understand that a lot of people are jumping on this. It's a really nice and really good thread. So well done on your 500 subscribers. And yeah, so thanks for that. Bye bye for now.